Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Sheffield United Way. Myself, Nick, and Ollie are back, and we're going to be talking about this takeover that seems to have been going on for a long time. It seems like it's been going better than the last two, I think is clear to say. And we're not going to be talking about those two. No, we're not going to be delving into that minefield. Everybody's talking about the takeover. I think a lot of people actually thought that the takeover had already happened. United will put out a tweet the other day saying that we've got all these players that are internationally recognised and that are going to be playing for their countries sort of in the international break. And lots of fans thought that we were kind of already taken over. So what were your thoughts on that, Ollie?
Yeah, it's a really weird one because I was certain this was going to happen before the end of the transfer window. You know, we've been talking about it for so long. I think the first we heard about it was sort of April, May time. So you're talking sort of 6 months from the point of when this has first started to be on the horizon, when we first started to hear about it. So I was confident it would happen before the end of the window. There were even some rumours, some suggestions that the owners had been seen at some of our first few games of the season as well, in terms of them coming in. So, yeah, I'm really shocked that it's not actually been announced by yet. I thought maybe, you know, let's give them a benefit of the doubt here, put out a theory. You want to take over a football club, but you think, actually, I want to make sure I've got time so that if I'm doing any investment or I'm making significant transfers, I want time to make sure I've got them set up properly. So you announce it just after the end of a transfer window. You've got 3 months to plan it before going big in January. So even expecting it at the start of this international break made a lot of sense to me in terms of the timing for it. But the longer it goes on, I get more confused about what's actually happening because, like I say, we were all so certain it had been agreed, so certain it was about to be over the line. And now I'm sat here thinking, but what is the cause for the delay? Why have we not heard any more noise on this yet? But hopefully that's just a case that something will be coming soon because, yeah, it just seems to be dragging on a bit at the moment. And that doesn't really seem like a positive set of noises, shall we say, or lack of noise.
No, and there's a lot of negative fans out there that's saying this has never been in the works. There's no there's no American owners out there ready to take over. They're not real people. They're sort of fictional characters. But it is true. This is happening. Something is in the works. It's just a little bit worrying how long it's taking. But I do understand, or I don't understand, and this is the whole point, that football clubs to be taken over, it must take a long time. And obviously Prince Abdullah put the training ground sort of takeover in the works. So that's probably another thing. There's the hotel that's just been opened as well. It's probably been another thing. There's lots of different components in a takeover, whether that's a football club, whether it's an accountancy firm, whether it's solicitors. There's a lot of moving parts in these sorts of deals and moving parts that are way above anything that I know. Ollie's probably got a slight more idea because he's a lot more knowledgeable in a lot of different areas and he's pulling a face at this time. But let's get to talking about football, Ollie, because we know a lot more about football than we do about takeovers. So let's talk about sort of like the transfer window and things that could have been different if the takeover would have happened earlier. So what do you think would have happened if these Americans would have come in earlier? They'd had time to sort of figure out transfer targets. Would Chris Wilder have even been sat at the helm? What's your thinking behind the owners and whether something different would have happened?
Yeah, I think it probably would have been quite a different summer. I think let's get the elephant out of the room first. I actually think we had a pretty good summer. I think the players that we've signed a very strong starting 11. We've got a good set of recruitment running all the way through that team, whether it's Michael Cooper, a goalkeeper who so many of us would have wanted, who's really highly rated, all the way up to 𝗣𝗲𝗴, who, again, we know what a good player he can be at championship level. Callum O'Hare would have been coveted by lots of other teams. So the recruitment that we've done to improve our first team was very good this summer. But had the American owners come in, there are so many other players that were rumoured in the background. We heard all these noises about players who've gone for £5-10 million, who we were apparently in conversation with, we were having discussions with. And as soon as the new owners have been announced, we're going to bring these players in. I'm talking about Tom Cannon, Chris Mepham, even players like Liam Cooper, Joe Worrell. There were so many that were just being talked about for so long that we never got over the line. Now, whether that was just because we were never going to get them over the line and it was paper talk, or whether it's because actually These were deals that were just waiting for a new owner to really rubber stamp and put the money in to do. I suppose we'll never know, but that's certainly what it felt like to me. And so coming out of the transfer window, I feel as though we're in a good position, but had we had the new owners in place, we would be in a great position. Because right now we've got a starting 11 that's good enough to compete with anybody in the league, but we do not have a squad that is good enough to compete with anybody in the league. And that's what's going to really hold us back, because any injuries, any suspensions, any significant periods of absence for any player leaves us so short in just about every position. So yeah, a good window, but I think had we had American owners in place, it would have been a great window. And I think we would have seen some of those really exciting money transfers like Tom Cannon coming in through the door, which is, it's just a shame we weren't able to get there. But we have to make do with what we've got now, I suppose. What do you think you would have seen different, Nick? Do you have any thoughts on maybe what they might have done different to what we've seen?
I think the same. I think we'd have brought in some players for money. I don't think we really brought many players in for money. And the money that we did spend, it was kind of 2s and 3 millions. I think that a lot of the players that we were rumoured with were probably the American owners' kind of idea. And then Prince Abdullah, in the end, selling 𝗲𝗚𝗄, selling other players that we didn't really expect. That's probably how we funded these players that have come in, for instance, Burrows and more, etc. So I think we'd have probably kept hold of 𝗲𝗚𝗄, or would have tried to keep hold of 𝗲𝗚𝗄. And in all honesty, I know you did a video on 𝗲𝗚𝗄 at the time, and you were happy with the fact that we got that money in, and obviously delighted, yeah. I expected 𝗲𝗚𝗄 this to his breakout season. And breakout season, the fact that he's playing most games, he's scoring goals finally in the league for the Blades, and he's really making a big contribution. Obviously, right now, it's not looking great for him. He's not gone out on loan. Newcastle don't seem to want to bring him off the bench, so who knows what's going to be. So, like I said, I think it's been a really, really good window, but yeah, could have been slightly better. And talking about windows, January transfer window. Now, what happens when we get to January transfer window time if the American owners have taken over and we are kind of top 2, top 6, something like that? What do you think will happen? And obviously, then the same question applies to if we're a little bit further down the league.
Yeah, and I'm sure there'll be scenario planning for all of those different sort of opportunities that we might have. I think when it comes to a January transfer window, there's generally, obviously, a couple of different ways that teams will look at it. And they generally try and look at it, either you do a Hull City, is how I'm going to refer to it. Last season, we saw Hull City just go out there. They were just outside the playoffs, and they threw all their money up the wall to see exactly what they could do. They brought in players like 𝗣𝗵𝗴 Carvalho, and they just gambled on really expensive loan players who had to get them in the playoffs. Otherwise, they would need to cut their cloth this summer, which is what they've had to do because their sort of strategy failed. We could then do what we've seen maybe United do in the past, where you get to January, you're in a strong position, and you go, right, we need 1, maybe 2 squad player additions. I'm thinking the last time we got promoted when we brought in Gary Medine and Scott Hogan, for example. It wasn't like we were going out there throwing loads of money at the promotion. What we were doing is getting in 1 or 2 squad players who will come in and just do their job when they're needed. They're not going to expect to play every week. They're just going to provide a little bit more cover. And I think generally they're the 2 ways that teams go. Obviously, there is a third. Let's not, the elephant in the room is a third. And that's things like, I don't know, selling James 𝗵𝗵 just when you're second and think you're going to get promoted. But that's not something that a club like Sheffield United would do anyway. So let's not expect that to be what happens. So I think if the new owners come in, I think they'll go for the first one. I think your first window as an owner, it's when you make your most relationship with the fans. The fans buy into your vision, to your belief, and you really commit them onto what you're doing and going into your project by doing big money acquisitions early. You see it all the time whenever owners come in, they want to make a statement. Birmingham have done it this summer, Jay Stansfield. Go back ages, and Man City's owners did it. They bought Robinho. It's all about making sure that in that first window, you send a statement. So I'd expect us to try and do that. Now, we were linked with lots of players over the summer that have gone elsewhere. They've all already moved. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of players they would be looking for. But that's the kind of deals I think they'll be looking to do. We have also still got loan sort of slots available within our squad. And I'd expect them at the bare minimum to fill those spots with players who are eye-catching and who potentially cost quite a bit in loan fees. So if the takeover goes ahead, I think we might have quite an exciting January if we're in that top 2, top 6 race. If we're 14th, which I don't think we will be, but let's say we're 14th for argument's sake when the time comes, I actually think it would be a more sensible approach to just say, you know what, keep the squad ticking over, get to the summer and do the full squad overhaul in the summer. We do not want to end up like Hull have done this year, where you've gambled everything on the playoffs, not made it, and now you've got a hell of a lot of recovery to do. So I think it will be sort of league table dependent, but I do expect it to be quite exciting. What do you think? Well, first of all, do you think we'll be 14th or do you think we'll be top 6?
We'll be top 6. We will be top 6. And I absolutely agree. I think those teams that go big in January, it doesn't quite often it doesn't work. And I think as a Sheffield United fan, not expecting too much. Obviously, we're not going to go out there and spend 20, 30, 40 million on players. But it would be nice to see us bring in a couple of exciting players that haven't really got that much game time, or not the game time that they expected. Premier League players that either have been brought in that summer, not really had much chance to shine. But yeah, I think it'll be 1 or 2. I don't think we'll go crazy. And like you say, if we're nowhere near the playoffs, then yeah, it's just pointless. It's almost like last season where we were wanting players coming in, but we knew that we were already down. We practically knew we were down, so it was pointless. And falling in love with 𝗵𝗵𝗴𝗵 probably shouldn't have happened. And I'm still in love with 𝗵𝗵𝗴𝗵𝗵. This flowing hair, what a man, what a man. Anyway, let's go slightly away from the the potential new owners. Let's talk about Prince Abdullah for a second, because if the takeover does go ahead, on the pitch, we have certainly improved, because when Prince Abdullah came in and he was joint owner with Kevin McCabe, we were in League One. I think I remember it being Jose Baxter scoring a goal away at Rotherham was kind of like the first game that Prince Abdullah was part owner. So on the pitch, we've certainly done better. We've been in the Premier League twice, whether people put that down to Chris Wilder or to Prince Abdullah or anybody else. We have been in the Premier League twice since then. Been really, really good times since then. We've had 3 promotions in that time, and we're in a really, really good position financially, and we've got a great team on the pitch. So I think he's done well on and off the pitch. There's a lot of people that will say the opposite. What do you think?
I think you can't argue that Sheffield United Football Club are in a much better position now than they were on the day that Prince Abdullah first became any kind of owner of Sheffield United. You know, back then we were in League One, and we weren't a particularly great League One team. We were in the middle of our long stint spent down there in the wilderness. And so we're in a much better position now, having had 3 out of the last 5 years in the Premier League. I mean, just to put it into perspective, in my entire life before that, I don't think we'd had 3 years in the Premier League. So we're in such a great run that this is arguably as good as it gets to be a Sheffield United fan, with how we've been able to progress and what we've spent.
We've also been to Wembley at least twice, if not more times than Prince Abdullah.
Hull and City?
Yes, they're the 2 that I'm thinking of. I can't remember if we've had another one since then. I don't think so.
We've not done any playoffs, have we, yet, under Abdullah?
No, but we've been to Wembley twice. That's 2 semi-finals of FA Cups. And I remember seeing recently a Blackburn fan talking about Sammy Smodick's goal against us at Bramall Lane being, that's the best they've had in years. That's a quarter final at Bramall Lane. We've had 2 semi-finals, one being that year, loads of promotions. I think sometimes we forget how it felt like before. Not before Prince Abdullah, but when we were in League One and struggling to get out of League One.
I think you take it for granted, and we definitely do that, because we're in a position of real strength in terms of Sheffield United's history and where we are right now. But there is the other side of this coin. You know, we've given a lot of praise there for the progress that the club have made on the field. We've made a lot of progress off the field with the new training ground, with some of the work that we've done in terms of improving the hotel. We have done investment into wider Sheffield United as well. So there's lots and lots of positives there, talking about how far we've come. Where the frustration comes, and where a lot of the negativity is going to come, where a lot of my own negativity comes, is that we haven't built on our position of strength. You know, when you look around and you think, I've just talked about this as being one of the best periods that United have had in my lifetime. 3 out of the last 5 years in the Premier League. That means Premier League money, parachute money, Premier League money. Yet we still started this season on -2 because of financial irregularities. That is almost inexcusable given the position and the situation we've been in. We have done really, really well, and he has led us into a fantastic period, but he can't capitalise on it. He's not the man to make that next step. He's the man who's consolidated us brilliantly, who's got us to a much higher floor, but he's never going to achieve a really high ceiling. He'll high floor, low ceiling, which means that maybe the best we can have right now, while Abdullah's our own owner, is being in the top 35 clubs in the country, because I think there'll be periods where we drop, there'll be periods where we go up, but we'll never be better than the 18th best in the country, and we'll never really be worse than the 20th. We had one chance of doing that, and it wasn't his fault that COVID took that away, but we still never built from that position of strength. And so I think the frustration with his ownership comes from the fact that when we've had the money, when we've been in a position of strength, we've not built the club up around the success on the field. And when I say that, I mean, we've built the off-field structures that we talked about, training ground, hotel, other bits, but we've not built up a footballing structure. So when Chris Wilder left the first time, everything went with him. So we brought in Slav and it didn't go well. So then we brought in Heckingbottom and we built everything with him. And then when he left, we've brought in Wilder and had to rebuild it again for Wilder. What we need to have is a organised footballing structure, which gives you what all the other clubs have. And I know it's not fancy, I know it's not what people enjoy, but things like you have a clearly set up scouting system where it's not on the manager to identify who your targets are, who comes in, who goes out. You have a director of football who's responsible for making the deals, who says, no, this is the max we're willing to pay and we're not going to go over that. You don't get ripped off for players because on deadline day we decide that we have to have Ryan Brewster, so pay whatever you've got. We've just missed out on that real footballing infrastructure to go around on-field success. And that's where the frustration comes, because we've wasted so much money and so much potential that we shouldn't be sat here saying, oh yeah, I think we might be top 6 come January. We should be sat here saying we should win this league because we've got the best squad, best players, highest budget. When actually we've got a good starting 11 and an average squad because we've not built up proper footballing structures around our squad. We shouldn't be going into a season after 3 years in the Premier League with our backup midfielders being 𝗬𝗫𝗄𝗏 and as good as he is, 𝗬𝗫𝗏. That's just not, like, come on. But my point is more that when you're a team that's coming down in the position we're in, you shouldn't have a player who's played less than 10 professional games as your first backup trying to get into the Premier League. That is a sign of a failure of squad building because you've just not built a proper footballing team. And that's where I think we all fall down at the moment. And that's where the frustration comes through under Abdullah's ownership, that he's done fantastically in bringing us up to the level, but he's just not the man who's able to kick us on. And he should always go down as a very good owner for United. And I don't want that to ever be disrespected because he's done a fantastic job, but within limits.
Yeah, there's not a great bit of competition for him for one of the better owners because
we've had some
lots of people. Yeah, we've had some real shockers.
Well, I suppose we also have to look at one of the key things that's going to drive the ultimate sort of how Abdullah is viewed long term is what the long term future of Sheffield United looks like after he's gone. Is he good? So, for example, one of the things that counts against him in all his legacy is that he's tried to sell us to 2 absolute fraudsters who somebody else has had to come in and stop it. Because if he had, do you know what I mean? If he'd accepted the offer, we'd gone ahead and we'd sold to one of the others, suddenly his legacy is the man who kind of rebuilt Sheffield United, but then didn't care to future-proof what came next. You've got to make the right decision in the sale. You've got to make the right decision in where we go. And so even people who might want to shout about how great Kevin McCabe was, ultimately, he was the man who was taking us into League One, couldn't get us out of League One. And if you're telling me that Prince Abdullah's a terrible owner, well, McCabe's the one who sold to him and made into the deal with him. So again, you're telling me that he's not future-proofed the club properly. These are the struggles that you have as a football owner, but it is the way it goes.
Let's call them the future owners. Let's assume that this sale goes through. Have you got any reservations or nerves about these new owners coming in? I know you did a great video on, you know, American owners, so I know that you've got some thoughts right now.
Oh, there's loads of reservations, but there's loads of excitement as well. It's one of those where it's almost, you can enter in be careful what you wish for territory, but you can also enter into this could be the jackpot territory, and it's impossible to know. We don't have the information available to us to really know exactly what to expect. All we can do is, as football fans, get excited, because you don't have that many opportunities to get excited when you're watching teams like United. Ultimately, we don't. And so let's get excited. Let's get carried away. So there is a chance that they come in with lots of money, with a drive to take Sheffield United to the next stage. They come in with a full plan. Some American owners, when you look at, and again, it's about, people will see the short-term pain and they'll say that there's nothing in this. But you look at Birmingham, and for all the negativity that we can do about how they're ruining football with how much money they've spent on Jay Stansfield, how they're doing it wrong because they've gone down to League One, what they're doing, not just for Birmingham City, but for Birmingham as a city, is incredible. They're building lots of infrastructure around them. They're investing in Birmingham so that it's more of a tourist place, so that they've got a better high street, so that there is an economy that works around Birmingham as the second city, as they like to call it. They've then spent lots of money on the football team to try and put them in a better place so that when they get back into the Championship, they'll not be there long, because they're aiming for the Premier League. So there's that kind of dream that you can get really excited by, where you start to say, yes, that's the investment I want. They're going to make Sheffield a city to be. They're going to make United the team to be, and they're going to drive us back into the Premier League and to be competitive. There's the other side of it, and this is obviously quite an extreme side of it, but there's the Chelsea model. Hi, everybody, where you don't have any idea at all what you're doing in running a football club. You know how to run a business that makes some money. And so what you do is you treat your football club as that business, and you trade in players as if they were stocks in a stock market. Oh, we'll take all these young ones, we'll get rid of all these old ones, and then we'll get rid of all these young ones and get some more. Because all they want to do is sort of play stocks and trade them around to see what they can do for fun. And that's not what you want, because we've not got the money and we've not got the sort of wider club to sustain that kind of push. So there's some real worries about how they're going to want to serve Sheffield United Football Club, and whether they see us as a football club or as a business. Because anybody who sees a football club as a business, that is a massive red flag for me that would cause issues. So we have to see which way it goes. But I think we have to at least hope that it goes through and be excited, because ultimately for us to progress to where we want to be as a football club, this is the kind of thing we need, and the kind of thing that will really, hopefully, drive us to that next level.
So thank you very much for watching. I think we're going to leave it there, Ollie. Thank you very, very much, as always, for giving your not just negative comments this time, positive comments also.
Well, I like to, you've got to try and mix it up a little bit. I'm full of all the negativity. Everybody knows what I'm like when I get carried away. But I do think that you've got to, I try my best to find some positives where I can. And I definitely think there's plenty out there. But yeah, we just have to see how things go and hope for the best, because ultimately we all just want to see United be successful. And so let's at least try and believe that's where we're going. Ollie, ollie, ollie. Ollie, ollie, ollie.